Right. Yeah, I should do it. Quite difficult to arrange this. Sometimes my feet disappear, don't they? But that should be it. Right. So feet down and just rubbing your hands together. And then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. On the shoulder. Arm. The side. Up the part of your chest. And your belly. And your legs. Right. Settle back. Feel your weight dropping back into the chair. And really there's often a sense of what I might call relief. Just this sudden remembering that you don't have to sort of like be sitting holding a posture or tight or something like that. We commonly just do that without realizing. And so this part of the class is specifically really to draw our attention to the possibilities that Tai Chi opens up for us, of being able to sort of sit, stand and move without that habitual tightness, of just finding a place that is relatively calm and quiet for a few moments. It's very easy to lose track of all of those things. Just a feeling of your breathing settling, maybe going that little bit deeper into your belly if you're comfortable with that deeper breathing. If not, just remind yourself that that's what you're wanting to do, but you're not necessarily going to be doing it today, and you shouldn't force it to do, but gradually these things will build for you. And of course, you know, just the, if you like, the mechanics of sinking back. Where are you holding tension? Where can you relax? Can you shift your position a little bit, and so on and so forth. And then looking in this slightly different posture, this slightly different environment, in a sense, about whether you can do the same thing again. What we want to try and do is, you know, this in a way is a very ideal position for investigating this, as on most of the Tai Chi stances. We rarely find ourselves in those positions when we're going through our daily life, but the possibilities remain. So in the end, we take the more formalized approaches that we find in the exercises and the forms and so on and so forth. And once we've got an idea of what we're looking to be able to do, we're able to find ways so that, again, in different environments, we start to generate some of these qualities. So most of your weight back, 2/3 of your weight back, about 1/3 in your feet, and this gentle compression in your legs, so that you feel as though your feet are being pushed into the ground, and there's this denser, springy feeling begins to develop in the legs themselves. Hips dropping back, bringing you to a slightly more upright position, and giving you that slight lengthening through your back and the tail of your spine, and right up to the occipital ridge, the ridge of bone at the back of your skull. And you draw your chin in so that you pull your chin back towards your Adam's apple, and that rotates the head and raises that occipital ridge. a nice open feeling to your back, but not stiff. You haven't sort of gone right, like that. You've used a combination of the pull of gravity and that slight lift to open up the back. And you maintain that because you've got the support of your feet and your hips, and because you're not straining against the pull of gravity, but you've got a degree of alignment there. And slowly turning your head. Every now and then, if it suits you, you can bring your attention back to your breathing. But don't try to sort of keep it exactly synchronized with movement all the way through. Hands in front of your shoulders. Going forwards. And then down to your sides. And hands out. Rotating. Now here again, remember it's quite a small movement. So it's very subtle. Your hands are just very slightly behind your hips and then very slightly in front. But enough to give you this sort of expansive feeling in your chest and maybe down into your belly as well. So if you want to try synchronizing breath and movement, you could try a couple of times just what it's like to take a breath in as you rotate the hands forwards and breathe out as you rotate them back. When we do that, it just serves as a reminder really for body and breath movement that there's that potential for them working together. And then winding around. And back the other way. Rest your hands, easing forwards and push back. Notice how that denser, springy feeling develops in your legs, becomes stronger until eventually it pushes you back. And then turn a little. And in the other direction. And around. Change direction. Good. Then 1 foot, stepping forwards, pull back. And the heel toe when you take the step. On the other side, heel, toes. And if you can, just that very gentle sort of pushing down as though you're trying to gently push your foot into sand. And then alternating. So there's that just barely noticeable, that shift across, release the leg that you want to step with. Okay. Hands down to your sides. Rotate your hands out, easing forwards. And then winding around. And then try this again so that you can get that full rotation. Rotation should come from the shoulder there, that opening there. But then when we cease to rotate and we go into fisherman castanet, there's still movement in the shoulder joint. The arms are swinging from the shoulder. and then over. And here you want to try the same thing. There's a swing upwards and your elbows are dropping down, and that tends to initiate the downward movement. We want all the we want all the joints of the body to feel that they've got a little bit of space in them. And the shoulders are perhaps a good one to sort of begin to appreciate that quality. You do it with your hips, but it's a bit difficult because there's often a lot of weight in the hips. Then change into pigeon spreads its wings. Name's confused there. Same thing. So a movement. Your shoulder joint is a very mobile joint, moving most directions. Like most of the joints of the body, or at least the ones that I'm thinking about at the moment, basically a ball and socket. The ball moving inside the socket. A little bit more complicated with wrists, elbows, knees, shoulders, hips, ankles are this ball and socket design. So they're a good one for just learning to focus a little bit on that internalized movement. And then pushing away. One more time. Hands fisted. And then back to the pigeon spreading its wings, and it's a three-part sequence. Feeling this sort of evolution from one movement to another. One more round of this. Turn your hands out. Once again, the opening in chest and the front part of the body. This is how the hands drop right down at the sides here. So they just wind in to the point in front of your hips. And because of the outward movement here, combined with the push forwards, it might be easier just to appreciate the significance of that opening and closing of the chest to the push forwards. Okay, now bringing your hands in, turn your hands palm down, very carefully sweep around, polishing the table. We get back to the center and we change direction each time. There's a slight overlap here. I go to one side, I come to the middle, and then just a little turn to sort of load the body. Like if you think of, again, that spring-like movement in your back, you get to here, it's neutral. You just tighten the spring a little bit and then let it release. Except it's not really tightening, but you know what I mean. You wind it up a little bit more. One more time. Turn your hands palm up. Gentle expansion again in that area of the belly. So again, you may find it advantageous at some point every now and then. Try taking a breath in. Feel that slight pressure downwards, the filling of your upper body from the hips up to your shoulders. And the wild goose. Heart in the clouds. Now dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So again, when we do this, there's that winding rotation at the top of the movement. Do one more on each side. Bring your hands in. Then add the turn. You may feel that little bit of a rotation in the hip joint as you do this. Very small, very slight, just a shift of the main part of the pelvis while you're, the ball part of the joint at the top of the femur is remaining still. So starting from the beginning of the sequence, if you can feel that in the hips, then there always seems to be a connection between that and the rotation in the shoulders. One foot out. Changing, grasping the tiger's ears. Switch over. And then hands fisted. Bring your feet back in. Hands in front of your shoulders again. Rolling your elbows and your shoulders in your chest and your upper back open and close. Begin to turn, so you turn in one direction and that redirects your elbows, and you see how my elbow is almost going down to my knee there. I come back to the middle on the side, almost like I'm swimming, I suppose. But we're going to go into bear play. So this time your elbow comes out, but your hand follows. Let's do one more on each side. And then just rest for a moment. With the weight of your arms just resting on your legs. Again, focus on your breathing, your posture. Now bring your hands up over your chest. We're going to do the archer, which I think most of you have done with me at some point, although we haven't done it recently. You push out to one side, you draw the bow with the opposite side. And that elbow on the arm that's pulling out can either go out directly to the side or tuck in behind. I prefer to tuck in behind, but do it whichever way feels comfortable. Try both ways. You turn your head to look at the extending hand, so in this case to the left, and then representing the releasing of the arrow, come back to the center. You push out. And around. So nice smooth movement through your chest and your upper back. Be careful not to strain. I'm trying to keep your weight sinking through the chair. Yeah, and again, coming back to sit. About a third of your weight in your feet. And if you can't feel that, then try this little trick of just raising your heels. You're much more aware of the sort of feeling the pressure in the soles of your feet because it's much stronger. Okay, and then rubbing your hands together again. And tapping lightly over your face. Light but quite rapid. I generally use palms of the pads of my fingers for this. What you could do, if you hold your fingers together in this sort of what is called the bird's beak, you can do that over your face, and in some other places when we do this, gives a much more precise feel. It's still very gentle, but can be quite nice. Go back to the palms of your hands now, hands open. Down to one shoulder. So I tend to use the palm of my hand here. I could use my fist for something a little bit stronger, or for something to sort of get into the little hollows and that. I could use this bird's beak type action as well. But just a general thing, the shoulder and arm, the palm of the hand is quite good. The other side, again, fist or the fingers held together. And then palm of the hand. And then down to your chest. Again, although your chest is quite hard, so be careful. You could use these little jabbing movements. Bird pecking, it's called. Your belly. Good. Okay, and then stand. That little shape I made with the hand, let me show you a bit more closely. It's just fingers come together like this. And it's just a sort of little tapping movement. Comes from Chinese massage techniques. It's quite good when you want to stimulate particular areas. So it's just another little addition, I suppose you'd call it, to the sort of general technique. In practice, you often find your own way of doing these things anyway. So feet about hip width apart, pointing forwards, just letting your weight rocks gently forwards and backwards, finding that point of alignment, that neutral point. And having sort of found it again, begun to arrive there, come to rest, let your hips sink down, sinking back, bring your hands around and push it up. So again, we can imagine the expansion coming from here, from the belly, like a balloon or a ball being blown up and expanding upwards and downwards, and indeed sideways and so on. Not a bad way of visualizing the way that this exercise works, and all of them work in some way. Now, last week I was talking a lot about these opposite movements, these balancing movements. And we can feel, if there's an expansion there, there's a pressure down into the ground as well as the upward and outward movements. Change to the wild goose. And then parting the clouds. And then the standing version of polishing the table, hands in front of you, turn. Just tilt gently forwards, make it quite a small movement first of all. And then back the other way. So here when I do this, notice how my hips move. It's almost like I'm trying to draw a circle with my hips. Notice how they here. And they go back. My shoulders go forwards. When they come up, hips come back underneath. My shoulders go up. Hands at about hip height, and just judge for yourself how far it's appropriate to go. Be careful, obviously, of your back and your knees. And the reminder is always that this is not a competition. Do one more on each side. 1 foot forwards, transferring your weight. Now, sitting back, raising your toes, and when you go forwards, raising your heel. And then stepping in. The other side. Remember, for the fixed step version, front toes are pointing forward, but they can turn out slightly when we're doing the step in. Raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in. And then got room, taking a few steps. Change direction. Okay. And then fixed step again. Start with bird folds its wings. And with that feeling of being pulled down through your hips, just helping you to stay upright. And then change into fisherman castanet again. And trying to feel the weight of your arms hanging from the shoulders. Check. On the other side. And then fisherman cast the net. One more time. Lovely. Find your chair again. So just give yourself a few moments to adjust your posture. Move your weight forward and remember that feeling of settling. And this is something that really you come back to, like all the time. All the movements have this sort of rhythm of some form of extension outwards, followed by a drawing back. And that can be a useful thing to notice, because each time we draw back, it's like when you breathe in and you breathe out. There's often almost a pause. It's not quite, you're not holding your breath, but it's like your body's gathering itself in to breathe in again. And those are the moments when we kind of recenter, if you like. With Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain, of course, there's a much stronger emphasis on it. But even so, there are regular moments all the way through the different exercises that remind us just of this feeling a little bit. We don't necessarily get into perfect posture or anything like that, but just that reminder. And taking a couple of breaths. If you fancy trying this with the breathing pattern, it's an in breath as you push up, an out breath as you bring your hands around, in breath as you draw in, and then an out breath as you feel your hips sinking, your shoulders dropping, your hands falling. So your breath is another thing that may help you with this sense of letting go, coming into your center, but there are many other things as well. As I've said before, sometimes it's useful just to identify one or two of the things that are for you quite kind of useful to remember. One more time. And rest. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. That went quite quickly, didn't it? It did for me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, flew
Always
by.
feel